Hi everyone, sorry for the long wait, technical difficulties, but it's working. So let's talk about accounting reports and how to customize them with the user interface of Odoo. So before starting, I remind you that there will be a Q&A session after this presentation. It will probably be really quick, but there will be one. And anyway, I will be available afterwards if you have questions. There is a link to a pad there where you can ask all your questions. So, you know, Odoo comes with a big reporting engine. So we provide a lot of possibilities to define formulas that will be interpreted to build your accounting report yourself. And of course, we use that engine ourselves within the standard reports that we provide. But you might sometimes want to customize the existing standard reports. You might sometimes want to have something diverging from the standard because you have a need, because something doesn't go far enough for you. And this presentation is really intended to explain what you can do really with only the user interface to change the behavior of the report. Let's get started. So first of all, you know, we need some kind of little joke actually, because we need a little funny pictures on the slides, right? So I think we need some kind of common reference about, you know, building things like with blocks or maybe bricks. That's much better. So let's get started, as I said. First of all, where do you find the accounting reports? Well, debug mode, accounting configuration, accounting reports. There you have the list of all the reports in your database, and if you click on one, you can basically edit anything on it. So the first thing you might want to do, and the most basic, I would say, operation, is just adding lines to a report, right? So for this, there is a lines tab on the form view of your report, and there is just a button at the bottom of it, add a line. Pretty simple so far. If you click there, it will open the form view of the report line, and there you can basically do whatever you want. So there are a lot of parameters that I won't explain here that are pretty much self-explanatory, but what I want to spend some time on is the thing at the bottom, because that can create some confusion if you don't know what it is. It's called expressions. So what is that exactly? On a line, you can define any number, actually, of expressions. Those things are the values that will actually get computed for this line, and that will be displayed into your report. So basically, you can see an expression as a variable. So you give it a name, you give it a formula, and you give an engine to interpret the formula, right? And so basically what you have after doing that is the columns, and the columns, they will reference the expression by using the expression labels. And so you're just telling, okay, my column A will take all the expressions with label, I don't know, total here, for example, and it will just look on every line, the expressions that are defined on this line, take the expression called total, evaluate it, and render the value in the right place in the column. So that's basically how this works. Of course, you can also add columns of your own. So each of these lines in this list there are going to be displayed as a distinct column in the view when showing the report. Of course, also, well, when you define a new column, you will need to pick an expression label to it to tell it what needs to go into it. And if you need a new expression label, you will probably need new expressions on every line of your report. Of course, it is also possible to have, if you want to have only, you know, data being displayed only on several lines in distinct columns, so having like blank spaces in the report, you're not forced to define expressions on every line with the label corresponding to the column. If you don't do that, well, you will just display an empty space on this line in that column. That being said, let's dive into the more interesting things. So dynamic grouping, what is that? Well, let's take an example. Here we have the balance sheet, and I have this receivables line. And when I unfold it, I see those lines. So that's actually the detail of what goes into the receivables line. So grouped by account here. So for each account that makes up the total showed in receivables, I'm going to display a subline, and next to it, the total balance on this account. How does that work? Well, actually, it's a generic feature. So on the receivables line, on the form view, you have this group by field, and you have account ID written on it. And that's what's doing the magic here, actually. And what can we do with that exactly? Well, I have a little funny story about that, because it's a true story from last year, to do experience. I had actually some partner coming to me and asking me, okay, I have my aged receivable report, and on my aged receivable, I want to group by, well, partner, as it is in standard, but also by currency, so like having two-level groupings in my report. And he was asking me, I would like to develop something like that. How can I do that? What function do I need to override? Where do I need to put my code? And I was very glad to answer him. Actually, you don't have anything to write. You can simply write comma currency ID in the group by field, and it will just do what you need. And so that's what we're going to do here. Let's say on my balance sheet, on my receivables line, I want to group by, well, account, and then by partner. I just add this. And just doing that, the report will be displayed like that. So you can see that under the receivables line, I have, well, one line per account. And when I unfold this line, I see all the partners corresponding to this account. Of course, it works with other fields. It works actually with every many-to-one, to use the technical term, field defined on the journal items model, so account move line. And so basically, you can do any number of level of groupings you want with this. Now, you might have noticed that here we actually do have a lot of partners under our grouping lines. And that can be a little annoying, actually, for multiple reasons. Let's say I have, it's not the case here, but let's say I have thousands of partners appearing there as sublines. So it means thousands of sublines when I unfold the line. So first of all, usability is pretty bad because, well, you can't expect the user to navigate, well, I would say freely in the report if you have thousands of sublines that he needs to go through to find the one he wants like that. So that's the first problem. But the second problem, which is even bigger, in my opinion, is that this can cause performance issues with the browser, actually. And it's a problem that we had in previous versions of Odoo, that sometimes when you get big reports like that with thousands of lines needing to be displayed, the browsers become slow. So I insist that it's not Odoo having directly a technical problem, a performance problem with that. It's really the browser not liking the size of what Odoo is returning to it. So it's pretty annoying, and we needed to do something, right? So for that, we introduced a mechanism called prefix groups. So what's the big idea behind that thing? Basically, when you see that when unfolding a line, you will get a lot of sublines, too many sublines like that, you just compute prefixes. So you just pick the first letter of each line that you would need to display and compute some kind of indexing like you would see in a dictionary with them, and you display just one line per letter. And those lines, of course, then can be unfolded to see what is inside of them. But doing that, you solve both issues of the navigation and the number of lines, because, of course, you will have way less lines like that, and because it's indexed, so it's like a book. It's easy for the user to find what he needs if he's searching for something into the report like that. How do you configure that? Because, again, it is a generic feature. So there is just a prefix group threshold field on the report directly. So I know the name sounds a bit barbaric, but it was clear, so we kept it. Sorry about that. So here I give it an arbitrary value of 50, just for the sake of my test. Again, it's arbitrary. I could have put 100 if I wanted to. And doing that, it behaves like we just saw on the last slide, simply. So what it means is that when I unfold a line, if I have 50 or more sublines that would need to be displayed, actually, I'm not going to display them. I'm going to use the prefix groups. And there is something more to that mechanism, is that it's recursive. So what does that mean? Well, if I take the letters, the index lines from my previous example, so here, line with K, that has 52 lines. When I unfold it, 52 is above my threshold as well. So what it does is that it will run the prefix groups again on that, and just say, OK, 52 is above 50, so let's pick the two first letters, so not only the first one, because I know that it's K already, and let's run the prefixes again there. So I will create KA, KE, KI, and so on. And so when I unfold one of these lines, so here KR is only 5 lines long, so well, there are 5 children to it. And so there, I don't use the prefix group, I just display the partners directly. So with that, we thought we solved the issue, and as you can see, it scales really well, actually. So that being said, let's move on to the next thing you could want to customize, and that is actually really easy to do and really powerful, in my opinion. Filters. So filters, you know, are those things on top of the report. So next to the red arrow, you see all those different things that allow you changing, well, the dates display for your report, adding a comparisons, filtering, depending on some analytic tag or whatever. All those things that appear there are what we call filters. And for example, here on my balance sheet, I have the filters by journals. So I can select a journal or some journals and just restrict what is shown in the report, depending on my selection in that filter. And well, If I open my generic tax report, though, I don't see that. And let's say I'm actually in a situation where I would like to see it in my tax report, because why not? I just want some filtering to happen there for auditing purpose. It's just clear to me in my workflow I need it. Can it be done? Well, the answer is yes, so it's a spoiler. How do you configure that? Well, simply on the form view of the report, again, there is under the Options tab a lot of options that you can see there that you can enable, and there is one for the journals here. So it's just a checkbox to tick, and just doing that will display the filter on the report. So basically, you can do that with all the filters that are available on some report in standard in Odoo. We don't enable by default all the filters everywhere simply for the sake of simplicity. We don't want to have a big block with thousands of, well, not thousands, but tens of options on top of the reports that would just make it, well, harder for the user to get through, because putting too many information in a single place is just losing the information. So even though we don't do that in standard, you are very welcome to enable more filters in the report. They are all compatible with all the reports by design, so it's a technical feature. Do what you want with that. So, that being said, do what you want with that, but be careful, you know, because there are custom handlers out there. So what is that barbaric name again? Well, custom handlers are basically the name of the objects we use to store custom code when there is custom code on top of a report. So it can happen for various reasons, and I say custom code, but even in standard Odoo, there are a lot of reports that use a custom handler just to tweak the behavior a little bit, or to add an export file. For example, I don't know, the VAT report in Belgium, for example, you have an XML file like that you can send to the government. It's handled by a custom handler. So this is really when you need some specific piece of code just for one report, there will be a custom handler. And when there is a custom handler, actually, you can be sure that it's not relying on some configuration that you could change. And if you change that configuration, you might break part of the behavior of the custom handler. So all that to say, we put a warning, so that's the red arrow on my slide, in Odoo 17 on top of the form view of the report when this report uses a custom handler. If you see that on some report that you're wanting to configure, just make sure that you haven't broken something, especially with export files for it. So it's just a warning, nothing is blocking, and in 99% of the cases you won't need it. I'm just saying it just in case, so that I would say you don't have accidents with that, all right? So that being said, you know, I don't want to finish the explanation on just a warning like that, and I would like to just go back on something more joyful than that. So let's talk about some new toy that we provide in Odoo 17, the Composite Reports. What is that? So essentially, a composite report is a report made of other reports. If you were there at the keynote yesterday, Winan showed one in his examples at the end. So basically the idea is that you just have a checkbox to tick on the report, telling that, okay, this one is going to be a composite report. If you do that, you can select sections. And sections, what are those? Well, they are just other reports that you're going to group into your composite reports. A report can be part of as many composite reports as you want. So a balance sheet, for example, could be part of a composite report and be a report of its own next to it and be part of another composite report next to it again. So you can do pretty much what you want with that. What is the use of doing that? So there are actually two cases. So the first one is doing very complex reports with a lot of annexes, appendices, like this one. So this is the annual tax report for Luxembourg. It's a big report that we support in details, I would say. And in the interface, it looks like that. So basically, every section, every appendix of the report is a section on the composite report, and the user can just switch between them by clicking on the little tab on top of the report. So it works very smoothly, and that's the objective, the goal of this feature, actually. So this allowed us programming this report within the standard engine without having a huge list of lines with all sections put one under each other, because for performance this was a disaster, because you had to load all the sections at once. Here you only load the one that is shown to the user currently. So that's one use. The other use is to just group existing reports together so that they will be exported together. So like Winan said yesterday, actually, we had a lot of feedback of people wanting to export their balance sheet and their profit and loss together, for example. So have a single PDF for both or a single Excel file for both in one click, instead of needing to open them separately, then export them separately and group them in whatever archive to store them somewhere. So this is possible with the composite reports. If you group your balance sheet and your P&L in a new composite reports, essentially when you will print the PDF, you will see both reports just one after the other. And if you print an it as an Excel file, you will see different sheets actually within the file, one for each report. So that solves both issues. And I think it's pretty nice because it's really easy to use if you know the reporting engine, because nothing changes essentially. You're just listing reports inside a composite report. That is all. And well, it solves the cases. So pretty cool. We're not adding a new complex concept on top of it. So that being said, I want to finish on a little bit of philosophy, When should you actually customize? And for this, remember what Uncle Ben used to say, with great power comes great responsibility, right? So I would say when you're considering doing some customization, you should always go through 3 steps. The first one being, do you really need to do a customization for that? Or could it be done by changing the workflow a little bit and falling back on standard features? If it's possible, it's always better to do that, unless, of course, it's inefficient, because you want people to be efficient and you don't want them to do things that will just slow them down. So it's not, of course, always possible. The second step would be, if you feel like you need a customization, shouldn't it be done with just things in the UI? Because sometimes just adding a group by somewhere, just enabling more filters in the report, just doing some composite report will do the trick, and it's really easy to do. And for maintenance, for you in the future, it's going to be way easier as well. So my advice would be to do that as much as possible instead of going to the third step and writing custom code for your report. Of course, it's only doable first if you're on premise or if you're on Odoo SH, which is not the case with the second option. And it's always more risky because on longer term, you will have to maintain that, right? So what a coincidence, by the way. There is a talk just after this one that I'm giving as well about customizing the reports from the code. So if you're interested, feel free to stay. And that will be it for me today. Thank you for your attention. It's now time for the Q&A session. So there is the link to the pad there. You can go there, ask your questions, and we will try to provide answers, right? Thank you. Oops. All right, and I think I'm supposed to have someone joining me, but I'm not sure. Do we have time actually for the Q&A session? Because I don't know. We don't have time. So if you have questions, my advice would be come back to me. I will be on the accounting booth the whole day, actually, after my second talk now. So it should be easy to find me, and I will gladly answer everything. All right? See you there.